Good morning, Rabotai. Welcome back to Breakfast in the Class. Breakfast in the Class today is dedicated for the continued health of Chana Bat Mefega and for the Fuah Shema V'Eliyahu Shimon Mazal Fortuné. Year of Breakfast in the Class is dedicated to loving memory of Nishmat Ruto Fali Bat Adela, sponsored by our family. And the learning for this week is dedicated by the Torah Center Silver donors, Grace and Ralph Gindi and family, in honor of Rabbi Farhi and Rabbi Mizrahi and your beautiful Kahal. Chazak Baruch. Please only answer Amen if you're listening to this live. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol nהיה baro. So let's begin. Al Chachamim tell us that when the spies entered into Eretz Israel, they saw a great many things. They saw fruits of inordinate size. They saw that no matter where they went, there was all sorts of issues with funerals. Anywhere they went, there was a levaya, leading them to come back and say, Eretz ochelet yoshvea. It is a land that consumes its inhabitants. You can't live here. Look, everybody's dying. It's obviously a very dangerous place to live. Now, it's a funny thing, because there's two clear ways for the spies to have come back and spoken about that. One way is the way that they did, and the other way is where they could have come back and said, listen, the fruit's amazing. We're not quite sure. We've never seen people dying everywhere, But at the same time, it's a fascinating thing, because they talk about people dying everywhere and it being difficult to live there. But then they're talking about the people as the strongest people living on that earth that are just unconquerable. So is it a place which consumes its inhabitants, or is it a place that builds its inhabitants? Which way are you looking at what's going on in Eretz Israel? So I want to share that I think that there's something here which is a very beautiful correlation to this point. At the end of the parasha, after we talk about the story of the Meraglim, we have a pasuk in the parasha that we mention all the time. What's the pasuk? Right? In chapter 15, Velo taturu acharei levavchem v'acharei einechem, and do not turn after your heart, v'acharei einechem, and after your eyes. That's what the pasuk says. Chazal ask a very powerful question. It seems like a strange way of putting that sentence. Don't turn after your heart and after your eyes. Ask the Chachamim, why are you mentioning turning after the heart first? Sequentially, first you see something, and then you desire it. So we should be saying, Acharei einechem v'acharei levavchem. Don't turn after your eyes and after your heart. It seems to be out of order. So the Al-Sheikh HaKadosh, he discusses this point, and he says a very interesting idea. He says that when a person is walking, and they're caught unawares by something that they should not be looking at. A woman that's dressed inappropriately, and the man is looking at this woman, and it's not appropriate for a sight for him to see. Okay? So the halacha is, says the Al-Sheikh HaKadosh, there's no way for me to have known that when I lifted up my eyes, that's what I was going to see. So the punishment, if you will, the incorrect action does not begin when the person takes that first look, but rather after they look away and then decide to look again. Says the Al-Sheikh HaKadosh, that's why the pasuk says, Lo taturu acharei levavchem v'acharei einechem. Even though you had to see it first with your eyes, that was not the asur thing. That was not your fault. In fact, I've quoted this before. The Gemara says that Rabbi Akiva once made a beracha on a very beautiful woman, the wife of Turnus Rufus. She was exceedingly beautiful, so he made a beracha on her. Ask the Gemara, how could you make a beracha on someone that you're not allowed to look at? You're not allowed to be staring at someone else's wife. So the Gemara answers, the scenario was Bekeren Zavit. Rabbi Akiva is walking down Fifth Avenue. Turnus Rufus' wife is walking down, 65th Street. As they got to the corner, he didn't know that she was coming. He was behind one wall, she was behind the other. As they emerged, he saw her for the first time without intending to do so. And once he saw a woman of such beauty, he made the beracha. That's what the Gemara says. Now, the concept here is really similar. The first time a person looks at something, when you didn't know what was going to be there, it's not your fault, it's not an avon. That's what the Chachamim say. Now you saw what you saw, you know what's there. To continue to look, or to look a second time, that's asur. Says the Al-Shikh, that's why it says, don't turn after your heart and after your eyes. Because it's only after you desired, you wanted to look at something, you intentionally looked at something. And now I can tell you, don't see or don't turn after your eyes. That's how the Al-Shikh HaKadosh answers this question. I think that there's a separate question, a separate issue over here as well. I think that separate issue is that automatically people are translating these words of turning after your eyes and your heart, or as the Pasuk says it, after your heart and your eyes, is a matter of looking at inappropriate things with regards to the realm of adultery, with regards to the realm of intimacy. But actually, there are many things that a person's eyes could draw them into. Some of them having nothing to do with intimacy or adultery or any sort of inappropriate dress or lack thereof. Sometimes a person's regular sight is enough to be able to be something that causes him to turn astray from Hashem. It is not by accident that in the parasha of the Meraglim we learn this idea: don't turn after your heart and after your eyes. You see, the Meraglim saw exactly the same thing as Yehoshua and as Kalev. But Yehoshua and Kalev, look at this, and what do they say? Tova haaretz me'od me'od. The land Eretz Israel is so good. It's the most amazing place. And the Meraglim are telling us that we better not even get involved. We should appoint a leader and go back to Mitzrayim. How could such a thing be? The answer, my friends, Al Chachamim tell us, is that the Meraglim had some alternate agenda. Whatever their agenda was, one opinion is that they would lose their positions of power, at least in their mind, when they got into Eretz Israel. So what did they do? They led Am Yisrael off a cliff, walking the plank. Why? In order to protect their own interests. I think that that's not just selfish people doing a selfish act. I'd like to suggest that maybe, just maybe, it's possible that the Meraglim didn't see something and interpret it badly, but rather, because of their agenda, because of where their heart lie, the definition of what they saw in its first impression on their minds was such. They looked and saw a dangerous place. Why? Because it was very convenient for them to have looked at this and seen a dangerous place. That worked really well for where their hearts were lying. So therefore, Lo taturu acharei levavchem ve'acharei einechem. Look at what happened in Eretz Israel with the Meraglim, with the spies. My friends, I believe that that's true in so many different arenas when it comes to a person's eyes and where they're looking. A person's looking at someone else's clothing, at their car, at their house. V'chol asher l'recha. You're looking at anything that belongs to somebody else, and you're jealous. There's a lo tatur over there too. When a person knows that they have a tendency to get jealous. So what's the isur? Getting jealous? No, it's almost like I can't help myself. What would the isur be in the Aseret HaDibrot, where it says lo tachmod? You shall not be jealous. I know I'm the jealous type. What's my responsibility? What's my isur? My isur is exposing myself to someone else's house, car, clothes, because I know automatically that's going to make me jealous. The isur of lo tachmod would be putting myself in a place, looking at something and knowing that that's going to bring me to jealousy. My friends, That, I believe, is the secret of what this pasuk is communicating. Lo taturu acharei levavchem ve'acharei einechem. Don't turn after your hearts and after your eyes. You know, in the world of magic, every magician knows that the hand moves faster than the eye, which is a very fascinating thing to think, because if I asked you if you could dribble faster than I could see you dribble, you'd assume that the eye is faster than the hand. But actually, in matters of illusions, the hand is quicker than the eye. So moving cards around, pulling something out of your pocket, distracting you with this, and pulling a dove out of nowhere, seems like when you're watching him. By the way, you could sit there and stare at the guy, and if he's good enough, you will swear that he plucked a bird out of thin air. I was watching the whole time. I didn't take my eyes off of him. Why? Because the hand's quicker than the eye. My friends, if that's the case, I want to introduce a concept. There's a famous statement that goes, seeing is believing. And actually, I think what we're learning today is that the Torah's perspective is that seeing is not believing. Because there's so many cases and scenarios where a person will be unable to see something that they just don't want to. Or that they'll see something in a certain twisted way because that's how it fits a narrative, or is an agenda that they already have, or is a difficult truth for them to accept. So seeing is really not believing. And I think on some level, we're being taught over here to doubt our eyes. Now let me share this concept and what it looks like in a broader sense. The Miraglim go into Eretz Israel. God tells you the land is good. You're looking around, you're seeing funerals. What's your response? God tells you he's going to bring you into the land of Israel. You're looking around, everyone is a giant. It's a whole country of NBA players. What do you say? I saw. We can't, not nothing we can do. The Torah is telling you that your eyes lie. They lie to you all the time. When you look at someone's life and you think that their life is amazing, what are your eyes doing? What do you mean? I saw. I went to the guy's house. I sat in his car. Yeah, but you don't know that he's 4 lease payments behind on the car and they're about to impound it. My friends, you don't understand. You go to a wedding and you think, wow, this is so beautiful. Look at how nicely they did it. And you don't know that the guy who did the wedding is crying every night, asking the party planner to see what she could cancel and get the money back. So you walk into this wedding and you think to yourself, wow, look at how wow, unbelievable job. By the way, it is an unbelievable job. Look at how successful these guys are. They could throw a party like this. No, seeing is not believing. So the question I want to ask for this morning is, what moments are you witnessing in your life that maybe, just maybe, are acharei levavchem ve'acharei einechem moments? What are they? I mean, yesterday was the most amazing news cycle. Israel declared superiority over Iran's skies. Later the same day, Iran declared superiority over Israel's skies. I don't think that's how it works. I don't think, we're like in kindergarten, you're fat. No, you're fat. Trump and Netanyahu are like, we need to evacuate areas in Tehran. Iran is like, evacuate Tel Aviv. That's not how this works. But a person can be so delusional, drunk on their own power, drunk on how right they are, that they simply cannot see something else. I believe But the Miraglim actually, their sin, where's their sin? So Al Chamim tell us that there was a punishment that the Miraglim experienced when they passed away. It was a miraculous punishment, and they were punished by their tongues. Chachamim tell us, what does it mean they were punished by their tongues? It means that midah keneged midah. They spoke lashon hara about Eretz Israel, therefore they were punished in their tongues. I'd like to suggest, I don't know, maybe it's a big hadush, but that is not as simple as it sounds. Because I would have thought that they would have gotten punished, not just in their tongues, but also in their eyes. In the ayn ra'ah that they had. How come they weren't punished in their eyes? Or at least that should have been where it came from. And maybe one answer is, like we said yesterday, that until they spoke, it was in the realm of etzara'ah. And only once they spoke it out into existence did it become a avon, a sin. I'd like to suggest another answer. One of the fascinating things that we've discovered over the last, I'd say maybe 30 years, is a very interesting concept called self-talk. What does self-talk mean? It doesn't mean you're a little bit loony and you're talking to yourself. Self-talk means that people have a way of speaking where they listen to their own words. Oh, I'm so forgetful. You know, I can't believe I'm so impatient. Say that about yourself enough times, your brain begins to believe the words that are coming out of your mouth. We've talked about this in various iterations. When a person says that they can achieve something or that they can't achieve something, the percentages of them being successful or unsuccessful skyrocket with the language that they use. My friends, I wonder, is the lashon that the miraglim are being punished for, was that the language that they used when they came back from Israel? Or was it the language that they used before they left? I'll give you an example. You have some bosses that they're very, very paranoid for their position. So in their offices, they operate with the highest level of micromanagement. And why do they do that? Not because they're an excellent leader, but actually because they're a terrible leader. There's such little self-confidence in the person that they have to tell every person what to do in the office. Why? Because they're nervous. If they don't, maybe that person will take my job. And it's not only about taking my job, even if I own the company. Maybe they'll be more popular. Maybe people will attribute the success of the company to their innovation. When a person has the ultimate levels of self-confidence in themselves and in the gifts that God gave to them, then they're very happy to let every single one of the people who work with and for them really fly, because their success is your success. Correct? You have a rabbi, you have a principal of a school. They'll never let anyone speak at an event of the school or of the shul. You have a boss. The boss will never let anyone run the meeting. He has to run the meeting. Even if the whole presentation is going to be given by the other guy, I have to run the meeting, because everyone needs to see that I'm in charge. If you are actually in charge, you don't have to play games telling people you're in charge. Everybody knows it. You don't have to broadcast that you have control of the skies of Tel Aviv, because you just do. My friends, maybe the onesh, maybe the punishment of the tongues of the miraglim is not the lashon hara they said at the end. It was the Lashon Hara that they said in the beginning. You know, there's a beautiful, I think it's a Ba'al HaTurim, that says that these spies, where were they taken from? Which echelon of leadership were they taken from? So Nathan is saying, Adin is saying, top. Incorrect. Incorrect. That's what everyone thinks. The Ba'al HaTurim says, fascinating, that Yehoshua was actually not, if you remember, in the Yitro saga, Yitro said, Moshe, you can't deal with everything by yourself. You can't give everyone answers even though they're waiting for you. You need to have a hierarchy, a system of judges. There needs to be Sarei Asara, Sarei Hamishim, Sarei Me'ah, Sarei Alafim. There needs to be a person in charge of 10, a person in charge of 50, a person in charge of 100, a person in charge of 1,000. And then when they get to the district court, when they get to the Supreme Court of the state of New Jersey, then they can bring it to you for resolution. You should deal only with the hardest questions that no one else could deal with, and that way they'll clear the bottleneck. Yes? Where was Yehoshua ben Nun? 100? 1,000? No. He was Sarei Hamishim. Where does he learn it from? He says that they were men of good repute. Hemma. Hey, mem, hey says about Laturim. Hey, and hey is 5 and 5 is 10. Mem is 40. What's it telling you? They were men of good repute, men of 50. That's why it's such a chidush that Yehoshua gets chosen to lead the Jewish people, because if he's in charge of 50, he had to leapfrog the people, the echelon of hundreds, the echelon of thousands. He was promoted from mid-management to be the CEO. My friends, gentlemen and lady, my friends, understand that these are people who before they went to Eretz Israel must have said to one another that when we get into the land of Israel, we're obviously going to lose our jobs. If you have belief in your gifts, you have belief in your talents, then whatever things change, when we go into Eretz Israel, the people will need me for something else. They'll use me for something else. I'll get a different job. I want it to be clear, my friends. That self-talk is what was being punished. Because that livavchem, that broken heart, that unconfident or inconfident heart, is what caused that when they went into Eretz Israel and they looked at it, they saw it through a perspective that only would allow them one outcome: status quo. How many times, my friends, are people so scared of change, but their fear of change doesn't emanate from a fear of the new circumstances, but actually of a fear of my own capability to navigate those unfamiliar circumstances. Says the pasuk in the same parasha, don't turn after your heart and after your eyes, because your eyes will tell you lies. They will tell you what your heart is pushing you, causing you, manipulating you to be able to interpret what you're seeing as. I'll give you one example that I remember that made a huge impression on me. I was studying Kollel one morning, and it was me and another rabbi was sitting there studying, and a third rabbi came and sat with us. Now this third rabbi in training, was someone who did not grow up religious, wound up becoming much more religious, and wound up joining our Kollel to become a rabbi to go out and lead a community. Unbelievable story. Super dedicated, super refined character, Really amazing guy. Anyway, me and this other rabbi who was studying together, we grew up very religious. The only place we'd ever seen was inside of a yeshiva. And then after leaving that yeshiva, we went to another yeshiva. Like you understand, this was our trajectory of growth. From one school to another Jewish school, higher levels of Jewish learning. Anyway, so we're sitting there and the guy comes over, and I don't know how it came up, but he says, I don't really have the background growing up. This was my story. Anyway, the guy at a young age decided he wants to go touring. We didn't have the money. So what did he do? Took a backpack, flew to Japan, put up signs around Japan that he's giving English lessons, taught enough Japanese kids English to be able to make some money, flew to the next place, put up more signs. And through that, got to see so much of Asia, had the craziest experiences. And he's telling us some of the experiences he had as he lived day to day, food to mouth, hand to mouth, without even knowing where his parnasah, his food was coming for the next day. Sleeping wherever, some youth hostel, at the house of one of the kids that he was tutoring, and he's sharing these crazy life experiences. Anyway, he gets up to go to the bathroom. The two of us look at each other, right? Never really left the yeshiva. And we both said at the same time, wow. What a crazy, interesting story this guy has, with all the twists and turns and nuances, and how in the Far East, he came back to the Middle East to find Torah and mitzvot. Comes back from the bathroom after we're wowing about how interesting this was. And he comes back and he says, well, I bet you're wondering how I got from there to here. He says, I'm traveling out there in the middle of nowhere, and I thought to myself, here I am, paying my way around the world with tutoring for English. I've never really been to Israel. I should probably do the same thing and discover my own country. So he tutored enough, got on a plane, flew to Israel. He said, and he walked down the street, and I could hear these voices. And I walked into this yeshiva with little children, and these kids were saying out loud, they were reading and reciting a Mishnah that they had learned by heart. And I asked the teacher what it was that these kids were chanting. And he says they're chanting by heart a Mishnah, a Jewish teaching. When's it from? It's from thousands of years ago. How do they know it? They know it by heart. He says, and as I looked at these little children studying, he says, all I could think was, wow. Me and my friend burst out laughing. Here, as soon as that guy went into the bathroom, what's our first reaction? Wow, look at this guy, traveled here, traveled there. Look at what he saw, what he experienced. We've only been in yeshiva. This guy travels everywhere, and then he winds up where? In the yeshiva. And he sees these little children doing what I would have done in my school growing up. Reciting a Mishnah, saying the Shema by heart. And after all that he's seen, what does he say? Wow, I don't know anything about my history, but these little children can recite by heart the ancient teachings of their great-great-great-grandparents of how a person should best live their life. And I decided I should probably know more than a second grader about my history and my heritage. So he went to I think it was to Esha Torah, and slowly started to learn more and come back to the religion of his ancestors. My friends, in that moment, can you see the difference in the eyes of me and my friend and this young rabbi? To us, maybe there was this element of jealousy. this element of wonder about this person's travels all wherever. And to us that seemed so amazing. But actually, maybe that spoke to a wanderlust that we had inside of us. A desire to go out to wherever. So we looked at that thing and we thought, oh my God. But here's someone who was doing that thing. And what was the oh my God? What we had. My friends, who was right? Us or him? Now, I think today, in the world we live in, we would say, nobody's right. Everybody's right. It's all a matter of perspective. Okay. I would like to suggest he is definitively right. And can I tell you why I think that? Or maybe someone can guess. Why is he more right than us? Why is his wow? Why are not all wows created equal? Excellent. We had only done one. And our wow was based on conjecture. His wow was both. Now you could argue he had never seen or learned the Gemara, so he didn't know what we'd experienced. True. But here we were, 10 years into the future. And his wow was still there. I'll tell you, after I heard his wow, I very quietly wrapped up my wow in tissue paper and threw it in the garbage. Because it helped me understand that I had an incorrect wow. How many times is that the story of Acharei levavchem ve'acharei einechem? Wow. Person desires a certain woman. Person desires a certain lifestyle. A person desires a certain set of life circumstances. Wow. But I'll tell you something. When that guy comes to your house, you know what he's saying? And he's had both. He's experienced both. I hear this all the time from people. May Hashem bless us, Be'ezrat Hashem, to be zocheh, to have our hearts be in the right place, so that the eyes will see what the heart already knows, and it will look in a way and see and perceive in a way where the feedback loops that we're receiving through our eyes actually reinforces what we already know in our hearts. And now that means that actually what you see will be influenced by what you've already decided. So when you walk out in the morning, and you open up the curtains, or you walk out the front door, and it's a miserable day, and it's pouring rain, and you have that, or when there's a beautiful day, you walk out and you have that, That's a shame. Because, we live in New York City. And you get, 50-50. You live in Israel, huge majority of the days are beautiful sunny days. But if you don't live in a place like that, if you live in London or Seattle, you live in Miami. I was standing next to an old gentleman, and he was walking out in the morning from his apartment building. And as he's walking out, he asked me, is it raining outside? So I said to him, yeah, I'm sorry, it's raining. He goes, no, don't be sorry. He says, it's always a beautiful day. It's either a beautiful day for me or a beautiful day for the trees. His perspective was, I love trees and flowers and grass. I love fruits and vegetables. So if it's a sunny day, it's a great day for me and my skin and for running around and having a hike or taking a walk in the park. And if it's a rainy day, it's a beautiful day for my salad and for my refrigerator and for all the magnificent things that grow in farms in Central Park. When you feel that way, before you even left your apartment building, you're guaranteed that every day is a beautiful day. Hashem should bless us to understand this about our eyes. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen v'amen.